G'day everyone and welcome back to the Perkins Engineering YouTube channel. Episode 44 brought to you by 1304 Semis, great friends of ours and tremendous supporters of not just the Perkins Engineering YouTube channel, but what I do with my car racing as well. Supported me now for a number of years. So big thanks to 1304 Semis. See their logo here on my jumper, which are very close friends with Noble Logistics. Warehousing deliveries, interstate deliveries, anything you need transport-wise. If Noble Logistics can't help you, check out 1304 Semis. The phone number is 1300 473 647. They're also obviously online. Google them to find their website, or on social media as well, on Instagram. So there's a cool beanie and a stubby holder there we may look to give away in the future. But in this episode, I want to carry on with what we did last episode, where we touched on the PI system and some of the details with the restorations. And in front of me, I've actually got a couple of pumps, and you might be wondering what that's all about. So this particular episode, I want to talk about the Diff and Gearbox coolers on these two cars. Now, it's funny because when these cars are built new, typically for, at that stage, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, the races were pretty short in length, 10, 20 laps at best. Or they were timed actually, which at the top of my head, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. So the Diff and the gearboxes never actually got warm enough to require a cooler, particularly on the Perkins Engineering cars. I can't speak on behalf of some of the other racing teams out there in the period. But Diff and gearbox coolers were typically only something fitted on a Perkins Engineering car for the Sandown 500 and the Bathurst 1000. So they weren't necessarily part of the initial design process, meaning they didn't get a technical drawing in terms of the mounts, the pumps, the lines, and all that sort of thing. It was kind of a couple of weeks out from Sandown. What are we going to do? We've got a cooler that we could use and some pumps. Get them in the car, boys, you know, in terms of talking to the mechanics. No sort of engineering drawings or spec drawings. Get them in the car and get going to Sandown and Bathurst. And then typically those pumps would probably, and that whole kit would come out after Bathurst, put in a box, chuck them up on the mezzanine or wherever. And then 12 months later, the next car, there's our Diff and gearbox cooler setup. Let's work out how we can jerry that into the next car and so on. So when it came to us trying to determine how that was going to work in these two cars, I mean, we could have sworn black and blue that we needed to have the sort of traditional Perkins Engineering Diff and gearbox cooler pump, which was known as what we would call Nippon Denso. This neat little pump here, something that was made by Denso Corporation, Japan, and we had it on chassis 1, P001. And chassis 001 car owner Stewie Hayes actually helped me out here because I didn't have a complete part number. I only had sort of a broken part number, something wasn't making sense, and he had actually done quite a lot of due diligence and found the correct part number and sort of helped me out with that. So big thanks to Stu with 001. And speaking of, a while ago when we were changing factories, Stu had actually given me this fantastic Peter Hughes drawing of chassis 1, and it's been signed by Larry Perkins, my old man, and David Parsons, Skippy Parsons, who was the co-driver back then. And he asked me to put this up for charity, which I will get around to doing. Just haven't had a chance to, but I really want to start advertising this bad boy. Very rare to be signed by Skippy Parsons and the old man. P001, Bathurst 1986. So keep your eyes on our YouTube and Facebook channels because we'll be raffling that off for charity. So again, thanks to Stu for organising that one for us. Haven't forgotten about it. And I haven't pocketed it. That's going to be going to a good cause. So we knew basically right up to our VY and even our last ever Jack Daniels cars, the Diff and gearbox cooler pumps were these Nippon Denso pumps. They were very bulletproof in terms of pumping Diff and gearbox oil. And in various chassis, the mounting holes were very obvious. It's got 3 holes here, which normally would be drilled in the floor, and you bolted it in from the top. These holes here are threaded, and then you just plumb your lines in. And let me just tell you, these pumps were almost unobtainium Very difficult to find, but when I thought I knew I needed them, I tracked down all over the world trying to find them. And a big thanks to a mate of mine, Nick Cassidy, who was actually driving for Tom's in Japan, involved with factory Toyota racing team. And we managed to get the last 6 in the world. 2 for each car, obviously one's a Diff, 1 gearbox, and a couple of spares. And we put it this way, the Japanese didn't miss us when it came to the invoice. So these cost us a fortune, but I was rapt to know that I got them. But right through the sort of strip down of the body shell phase, we were at an absolute loss because we couldn't find in both chassis any way, anyhow of mounting these. We asked numerous ex-staff members what they thought of this, and no one really had any other ideas other than a Nippon Denso pump, but we couldn't work out where on the car they went. Like I said, they weren't given an engineering drawing. It was more of something that was sorted out by the mechanics on the floor, and it only was in for 2 races of the year. So we were at a real loss. But something that was quite obvious in both cars were 2 sets of holes in the same place, but they were perfectly drilled apart for a Holly Blue style pump and its mounting bracket. So we thought, okay, well maybe this bracket came off the Holly Blue and got wrapped around the body of the Nippon Denso pump and mounted it with just 2 fasteners, making it a bit easy to fix. But the body's a lot bigger on the Nippon Denso pump, so that didn't work. It just couldn't have worked. Then we started to hunt around a lot more, rang up a lot more people when we were doing the Perkins Engineering car book, and spoke to a couple of ex-staff members. A lot still swore black and blue that we used this Nippon Denso pump. Spoke to Derek Van Zelm, who said, no, we used the Holly Red pump, which was interesting because that was the first sort of indication that maybe it wasn't actually a Nippon Denso pump. And then I spoke to Toby James, another staff member, who said it was a Holly Blue, and he remember thinking as a young bloke, there's just no way a Holly Blue would work. And he thought, that LP's idea of that, using that pump, a fuel pump, on an oil system was just silly. But then as he kind of learnt, the Diff and Gearbox cooler pumps were only ever turned on when the Diff was hot and the Gearbox oil was hot. So when it was hot, it was easier to push through a little pump, a little vane pump. And we had to make an executive decision that although we spent the net foreign debt buying these last remaining Nippon Denso pumps, and unless someone out there has a photo of a Nippon Denso pump hanging off a 93 or 94 Bathurst Castrol Commodore, then we had to save some face, and Holly Blue pumps it was. And as you'll see from the overlay footage I'm hopefully editing in now, those holes in the floor were a giveaway. And so we set about fixing them in the car, and then kind of trying to come up with the bracketry, given that the floor scenario around the diff arms was a little bit different in the 2 cars, and just what we sort of knew about then trying to fit the filters and the filter housings in, and where they all went. The wiring harness played a pivotal role. Both harnesses had a loose wire going all the way, one wire on both harnesses, which were the original wiring harnesses, went all the way back into the boot, into the back right corner, which was where we kind of guessed the diff cooler mount went. And then another sort of halfway down the transmission tunnel, at the sort of where the back seats would be, another stray wire for what we've now been able to trace back to the Larry Tower on both of them as being where the gearbox cooler power went and the diff. So that then led us to doing what we've done. So we've made a few executive decisions. I'll grab the camera now and I'll sort of show you what I was talking about there and kind of how it's all roughed in. But again, another part of the car and the restorations on both rockets that we've spent an enormous amount of time on trying to find photos, information. And look, if we're wrong and someone can give me a photo of these pumps under the car at Bathurst in 93, I'll stick them in. But up until this point, drilling holes in the floors of a race car doesn't happen a lot. So for both cars to have these holes, which I'll show you right now, was ultimately a giveaway for us. So enough of me rattling on. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so in the 93 car, I want to show you where those holes were. Right there, those 2 holes in the floor that have now got fasteners in them. That was in the exact same spot in the other car, perfectly lining up with the Holly pump mount system. And if you'll see then when we go under, a few of you might have seen this from one of our previous episodes, but it all sort of mounts in perfectly. I haven't quite wired it up yet, but yeah, it's a perfect fit for that area. And then our filter housing sitting up in this little pocket here. It's a little bit tricky with the lines, trying to get the shortest route possible, but very happy with kind of haven't had to drill any holes in the floor. Again, both cars had mounting holes for these filter housings, the Ryco ones. So it was just all a bit of a perfect storm. And then we had to go set about using what we knew were the right coolers, which were a Cirque brand, and we made our gearbox cooler there. All the bracketry system, again, didn't have to drill any holes. We just kind of married up, and it may not be 100% accurate, but we're very confident it's pretty darn close. And again, if anyone's got any photos, then we can quantify what we've done, but it's a pretty tricky area to find photos. So that's the gearbox cooler and pump on the 93 car. I'll run over and show you on the 94 car. And there you see on the 94 car, there's those 2 holes right where they are on the 93 car. And if we jump underneath this rocket, you'll be able to see the Holly pump mounted to the floor. A cooler in a slightly different spot to marry up with the holes and things that we could find in the floor, and a slightly different shroud, but all the same principles. And the housing there, all pretty well what we could come up with. So very happy with how that's come up. And now I'll show you the, whip back over to the 93 car and I'll show you the Diff. And here's where we've mounted the Diff coolers for this car. And we've got, again, we found these holes for the Holly Blue pumps perfectly in the boot on both cars. Didn't have to drill any holes. Made our mesh base, our bracketries based on what we've done in the past. And the filter housing sat up there. And it's got a bit of mesh that goes over the front. And you'll see our lines that go across here. I'll show you in conclusion the photo that we've got to show our lines going through there with the fire sleeve on them. And there's a bit of mesh that goes over here, which I'll show you on the 94 car. And our lines go straight to the back of the Diff, around the panhard on this car. And that's the Diff cooler. Let's go and have a look at the 94 one. And there's the 94 Diff cooler in the same spot as 93. Here's our mesh that will get mounted up here. And I'll show you when we finish how we know that was there. But again, see, perfectly 2 holes under there for the Holly Blue next to the fuel tank. Big bit of mesh just goes in the front of everything to protect everything. The Ryco filter. And yeah, that's different gearbox coolers on both cars. So that's it. That's the different gearbox coolers on the cars. Very funny how we spent a fortune, tracked down the last 6 pumps in the world. May not need them, but the trusty Holly Blues at this stage look like the winners. Now, like I said, see if I can get this photo to come up in front, but this is one of my mum's photos. And there's Dean Curl Orr, proud as punch there, posing for a photo from my mum. And I'll zoom in here, but you can see in the rear wheel arch there where that mesh, and you can just see there's that orange fire sleeve cutting through across that section there. So that was probably the best giveaway we had for the mesh and the Diff cooler being there, but obviously also the wiring that come down to the back from that wiring harness that sort of followed the tail lights all the way down to the back there. And when you pin it out, it goes to the Diff switch on the Larry Tower on both cars. So yeah, the amount of time I've spent and a few others have spent kind of researching all this stuff, pretty hard to put a price tag on it, but you know, the authenticity and the kind of attention to detail we've done is second to none. We're sort of feel like we're setting new ground with car restorations, very transparent and leaving no stone unturned. So again, thanks for the support, everyone. Big thanks to 1300 for semis for jumping on board these couple of episodes. Looking forward to bringing you more and more content like this as we build the crescendo of kind of finishing these rockets off. Plenty of work happening here at the moment. Yeah, we look forward to bringing you more and more content soon. Don't forget the website, perkinsengineering.com.au. Hats and t-shirts. Well, there's actually not a lot of hats here at the minute, but we're planning on getting some more soon. T-shirts, a little bit of memorabilia popping up here and there. As we finish using things for these cars, if I've got surplus bits, they'll be going on there. So remember to check the latest section, latest products, because when anything new gets uploaded, it gets uploaded to that page in particular. So yeah, like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We're not far off 20,000 subscribers, I believe. So tremendous support for something I just started in COVID to cure a bit of boredom. So thanks everyone. Thanks again, and look forward to bringing you more and more soon. Cheers.